Modern technology has made it amazingly easy to create and share videos about geoscience. But getting people who aren't scientists to actually watch those videos is still a big challenge. So how do you make geoscience videos that people will actually watch? I'm Nick Tate, and this is a collaboration with NExUS, the National Exploration Undercover School at Adelaide University. Transferring a science-based message to an audience can be a tricky business, particularly if the people in the audience aren't scientists. Video is one of the most effective mediums for communicating a message, and it can now reach a truly vast audience via the internet. But your video will only be effective if your intended audience actually watches it. To do that, you need to make sure that your thumbnail image, your title, and your video content are structured in a way that your intended audience will click on it, get hooked by the introduction, watch the video to the end, and absorb the message. Crafting an engaging video requires a mix of technical skills and creativity, so there's no simple formula that guarantees success every time. But there are some basic rules that'll help to ensure that your final cut has all the elements of a good story that'll be watched, enjoyed, and absorbed by your intended audience. Rule number 1, write a script. If you're watching this video, you've probably already got a story in your head and a vision of how it'll look in motion. When you have that vision and you know your subject well, there's a very strong temptation to just hit the record button and wing it. After you've done that a couple of times and sat down to edit the footage into a coherent video story, you'll realise just how unstructured your thoughts are, even on a subject where you know the details well. You'll also realise just how much you left out because you forgot that some things aren't common knowledge. Writing a script will ensure that you include all parts of your message in a logical order. The process of writing will also help you to structure your message as a story that'll build expectation with your audience and lead them to a conclusion. Once you've done a couple of videos with scripts, you'll be horrified at the amateurish fails in your first 2 videos and in the videos of other people who've ignored rule number 1. The first line of your script should be a single sentence that captures the message your video will deliver. That'll help viewers to decide if they want to watch the rest of your video, and it'll help you to stay on message as you write the rest of the script. Rule number 2, keep the useful information flowing. This is all about keeping the attention of your viewers. If you lose that attention, even briefly, those viewers will click away onto something else and they'll never see the rest of your content, no matter how good it is. If you're making informational or instructional videos, viewers are only there to get the knowledge that you've promised to deliver. If it looks like you're not going to deliver, they're gone. When someone clicks on an informational video, they've made a choice based on the thumbnail, the title, and the length of the video. They've judged that the title matches the information they've been searching for, and the length of the video matches the level of detail that they need. If you start waffling or stray from the subject, they'll quickly realise that you're not going to deliver the information they need in the time available, and they'll quickly click away to another video that's made a similar promise. Even if your video is presented in a story format, every shot needs to add some information to that story as it evolves. YouTube is not a movie theatre. If you start adding long, artistic sequences without any information, viewers can very easily get up and leave, and they will. Holding the attention of viewers is all about keeping up the flow of information that's useful or relevant to them. As long as they feel they're getting valuable information and that there's more to come, they'll keep watching. That's why you see so many videos on YouTube with titles like "Foolproof Way to Solve Rubik's Cube" or 10 Guaranteed Ways to Straighten Curly Hair. They promise a continuous flow of useful information right to the end of the video. Rule number 3, tell a story. You might think that science videos don't need to tell a story, but in fact all messages are much better delivered and absorbed if you set the scene, build an expectation, and then deliver a conclusion. Children are conditioned from an early age to learn messages that come wrapped in stories. That mode of learning sticks with us for life, and everyone will digest your message much more easily if it comes in that familiar package. Building and following that story structure will be much easier if you followed rule number 1 and wrote a script with the first line as a story outline. When you're writing and telling your story, remember that all of the elements that work effectively in fictional stories, struggle, failure, discovery, enlightenment, redemption, all work equally well when you're telling science-based stories. If you weave those elements into the fabric of your story, you'll have a winner. Rule number 4, aim at the widest possible audience. If you want to get a geoscience message out to a significant proportion of society, then you need to make your message relevant to something that most people care about. The basics of life are the best target because they're important to almost everyone. Food, water, housing, warmth, light, transport, money, life for the next generation. If your video describes how geoscience is critical to one or more of those factors, then it'll be interesting to almost everyone on the planet. Rule number 5, make it personal. Viewers will engage much more strongly with your story if they can identify with it personally. Put them in the picture so that they can imagine how they would deal with the issue you're presenting by themselves. A video about how volcanoes grow with some spectacular footage of erupting volcanoes is already an interesting story. But if you add some footage of mummified bodies from Pompeii, you'll engage your audience on a whole new level.
Engage.
If you're explaining a concept that people can't normally feel or see, use analogies that they can identify with in their daily lives. For example, you might say that if it took dinosaurs 500 million years to evolve from jellyfish, you might compare that to sheets of copy paper that are 0.1 millimeters thick, so 500 million years represents a history book that's 50 kilometers thick. Rule number 6, don't do a PowerPoint presentation. PowerPoint's a great tool for developing scripts and storyboarding videos, but it's a gross waste of the messaging power of video if it's used as the primary delivery platform. PowerPoint evolved as a digital version of the transparent mylar sheets used on projectors in lecture theatres. Since the internet got fast enough to distribute video streaming, it's become popular to record live PowerPoint presentations as science communication videos. The format's usually a sequence of PowerPoint slides with the presenter as a small talking head in the top right corner of the screen. The viewer is often confronted with the task of reading text on the slide and interpreting a complex static diagram while listening to the presenter's words at the same time.
Now, this is a very complicated system I've decided to show you at the beginning, just to scare you a little bit.
Only viewers who are very familiar with the subject area will be able to maintain full engagement with that format. And even they will probably end up missing some parts of the message. Video offers infinitely more dynamic ways to explain concepts, and it allows the viewer to come face to face with the presenter, which is much more engaging than viewing text or images. How many TV shows or news broadcasts do you see where the main character is a talking head that occupies 5% of the screen? Videos for wide audience consumption need to be presented in the familiar formats of news and entertainment, where the presenter is the main subject of engagement during introductory and concluding discussion, and the explanatory segments cut to moving graphics or illustrative footage with voiceover. It's fine to use static photographs or diagrams with voiceover to illustrate a point during a video, but they should be simple enough to illustrate a single point in a clip of a few seconds. Longer explanations of more complex diagrams will deliver information much more effectively if they're animated in some way. Remember, PowerPoint was developed as a tool to prompt you during a lecture so you didn't forget stuff during the delivery. That's no longer an issue with video because you can shoot as many takes as you need and cut them all together in the editing software as a seamless delivery. If you're in front of a live audience and you've only got one shot at the delivery, then PowerPoint's probably the tool of choice. But if you're in front of a camera and the ultimate audience is out on the internet via YouTube, then there are a lot better ways to present that story. Rule number 7, get to know your audience. If you're making videos for people who are not scientists, then you need to present material in a way that they're familiar with and they enjoy watching. Get to know what your intended audience watches and the delivery style that works for them. You'll need to aim very carefully at the level of understanding of your intended audience. If you aim even a little bit too high or a little bit too low, they'll quickly conclude that the material isn't for them and they'll just switch off. Use language that your intended audience will be familiar with. Avoid specialist terms and acronyms that require a detailed knowledge of the subject. That'll tell most of the viewers that it's a video for specialists and not for them. That's really going to narrow your potential audience and reduce the total number of people who watch your video. Think about the age of your intended audience. Younger viewers tend to like fast-paced delivery and they're more interested in things that affect their future. Older viewers will be more happy with longer cuts and more detailed descriptions, and they're more interested in subjects that revolve around history. Watch some YouTube videos around your subject area. Analyse the ones that get lots of views and the ones that don't. Read the comments and see what people like about the delivery style of the good ones and what they don't like about the bad ones. Rule number 8, music is optional. If you read or watch almost any guide on how to be a YouTuber, then they almost all say that music is a must. But almost all of those guides are designed for people who make entertainment or news type content, because that's where the money is. The key thing to understand is that music is a mood maker, and mood can really help people to absorb a message in the right context. If you're making a messaging video about the great benefits or dire consequences of some new scientific discovery, then music can add an emotional setting that really adds to the gravity of that message. If you're making videos towards the entertainment end of the infotainment spectrum, then viewers will expect background music as part of the entertainment experience. If you're making an instructional or informational video about a highly technical subject, then background music might actually be a distraction. I never use background music in my geology videos, and I frequently get comments from people who really appreciate that. Rule number 9, keep it simple. Part of the reason that science communications struggle to reach a wider audience is that the material is often seen as too complex. Absorbing that complex content looks like about as much fun as a homework assignment. But dissolved in almost every deep pool of scientific data, there are results that affect people's lives. The real art of science communication is the ability to distill complex, rigorous research into simple stories that are relevant to everybody, without dumbing down the science or mangling the message. So video is a very effective medium for geoscience communication, and it now has the potential to reach a global audience. If you structure your message in a way that gets and holds the attention of that audience, you can harness enormous leverage to make real change in public opinion about geoscience.